I see Reddit posts, videos, and other things sometimes where D&D DMs will say, Strahd, the titular villain vampire of Curse of Strahd, is weak. I'm sorry, but I think that's wrong. Actually, it's not wrong. He is a bit weak. He's a bit of a glass cannon, so he can dish out a lot of damage, but he equally is quite weak in return. But there's more to it than that. There's more context. And that's what this video is about today. Greetings, fellow Mist Wanderers. My name is Steve Morgan, and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. So yeah, saying Strahd is weak is the wrong thing to say in my opinion. He is weak. He's quite low HP for a challenge rate in 15 monster, and if you shine sunlight in his face, he's going to die fairly quickly. A more accurate statement is to say, Strahd is weak if you don't run him properly. It's at this point I should say there's spoilers for Curse of Strahd in this, and running Strahd and Strahd as a monster, etc, etc. So if you are an aspiring player or a current player of Curse of Strahd, I probably advise you not to carry on watching this. I think it's a shame because without the full context, people will think he's weak. If a DM who's considering running Curse of Strahd thinks that he's weak, doesn't get the full context and hears this, will it put them off running it? Will they think, well, I'll just choose a different adventure instead? He sounds like a pretty lame villain. But there's so much more to Strahd than just his stat block. I'd say there's kind of two facets to this. The first is his character and his backstory, and there's some points to that. And the second is his lair actions. Because Strahd is a vampire, but he isn't just a vampire, and that's what makes him interesting, and I'd argue good, and not weak as a villain. And I mean, I'm probably not saying anything so earth-shatteringly shocking. I imagine that a lot of Curse of Strahd DMs know this. I know I said that this is one thing that everyone gets wrong in the banner, but if you zoom in on the tiny text I put in the middle, I said except for maybe most Curse of Strahd DMs. I think a lot of Curse of Strahd DMs know this, and it's some Curse of Strahd DMs may not, or people who don't know Curse of Strahd at all are going to be the ones who think the Strahd is weak. If you're new to the channel, this is the first video of mine you've watched, then hello, my name is Steve, this is DM of the Mists. I cover just Curse of Strahd and just Ravenloft. I know there's other dungeon tubers who might cover a wider range of doing D&D, being a DM. I mean, I'm niche, I just cover those two things. I've done over 100 videos now, so I've done at least 50 dedicated Curse of Strahd videos. Feel free to check out the playlists on my channel, subscribe if you want to learn more. So let's talk about that first facet. First of all, the character backstory stuff. Strahd isn't just a vampire, he's also a wizard. In my opinion, that immediately makes him more interesting. It makes him unique and less predictable. Granted, he's not as powerful as, say, an archmage or a lich, but still, it's likely to be a nice surprise for the players. They might think to themselves, say if they're in a situation where combat with Strahd finally begins and they don't know he can cast magic and they're like, right, he's a vampire, we should keep away from him so he doesn't bite us, and then from a distance Strahd just throws a fireball at them. I think that'd be great. And as a player, when I discovered this, because I was a player in Curse of Strahd before DMing it, I remember when we discovered he could cast magic, I was like, oh boy, this is going to complicate things. Strahd is not just a vampire, and he's not just a vampire wizard, he's a general. He used to be a commander of his father's armies before becoming a vampire. That means he's probably going to be tactical, he's probably going to be smart. And I think just that knowledge alone makes him scarier. Just the idea knowing that he's not just a vampire, but he's a very combat savvy one. I don't know about you, but when I think of classic vampire tropes, I don't often think of the famous vampires who are leaders of armies. So I think that makes Strahd quite unique in that regard. And it's going to get the players thinking, is he going to have a lot of minions because he, used to be in charge of armies and had a lot of soldiers? The answer is yes. Next, let's talk about the other facet, which I think is probably more important. He's got lair actions when he's in Castle Ravenloft, and one of them means he can phase through the walls and also the ceiling and the floors, but most likely the walls of his castle. You combine that with his legendary actions. One of them is movements. We can move in between people's turns, and he can really move around a lot and hide a lot and get out of sunlight, recover HP, and get out of the way of the PCs. It means that he can wear down the PC's resources, such as spell slots, and their HP as well, while he goes away and regenerates his. I actually, on the Curse of Strahd Facebook group for DMs, I once saw a DM bragging that he had never lost running Strahd as a DM. So whenever he ran, say, Curse of Strahd or Strahd Must Die Tonight for players, he had never lost. The players had always lost because he played Strahd that tactically, that effectively. They'd never beaten him. Now, he could be lying, he could be exaggerating, but do you know what? I could believe that. I think he might be telling the truth. Even if he's not telling the truth, I think it's something that could happen. Although, a bit of a side here, it's quite funny how, a few weeks after that, he was like, hey guys, I'm also a paid DM. Does anyone want me to run Curse of Strahd for them? And I just thought, why would anyone want to pay you to, DM for them and knowing that they're going to go into the final battle and lose? Unless you think, what if I'm the one player who can actually beat him when he's running Strahd? That'd be pretty cool. Anyway, I digress. I've seen the argument that the whole wall phasing, lair action, legendary movement out of the way thing, it can be bad and it can be boring. I'm going to counter this by saying don't underestimate your players. Do your players really want an enemy who's just a big pool of HP, stood in the middle of the room taking the hits and doing damage back? Probably like most other final battles in most other adventures campaigns. I'd like to share my experiences as a Curse of Strahd player in DM. When we were a player and Strahd was doing these shenanigans, I did find it frustrating. But in a good way. It was like one of those things where you think, oh, this guy's annoying, but he's also being really smart and tactical, and I'm having to think differently here about what I do, and so were the other players. And I enjoyed the final battle. I'd say actually it made the victory sweeter as well. When we finally defeated him, I was like, oh, thank goodness for that. And it was a miracle as well that we all survived. And as far as I know as well, none of the other players complained. They all enjoyed it too. And when I DM'd Curse of Strahd for my players, none of them complained either. Now, it could be the case they hated it and just didn't tell me. I hope not. As far as I know, they all enjoyed it. Now, I'm just one person, and that's just one anecdote or two, technically. I'm sure there's going to be at least one other DM or player out there who disagrees with this and said, I'm sorry, when we played it, we hated it. What I'd like, actually, is let me know in the comments what your experience was. Did you, whether as a DM or a player or both, did you like it? Did you hate it? It'd be good to see what people think and get some sort of consensus going. I think a lot of the people who say, oh, I don't like the idea of it, to people who haven't run it or experienced it, it's just a thought in advance, which is fair enough. I can see people thinking that, but I don't think it's as bad as people think it's going to be. Another thing I'd like to remind people of, Curse of Strahd is a horror campaign, and wall phasing fits perfectly with that. There's nothing more horrifying than planning, what players are like when they're like, right, this is what we're going to do with this final boss. You're going to do this spell and we're going to do this, and you're going to bring out the Sun Sword, walk into the room. Within round one, Strahd's disappeared behind a wall, and you realise at that point he can go through walls. It's like, oh, I don't think our plan is going to work anymore. That's horrifying. It's a horror campaign. It gets players thinking differently. Do they have to do ready actions? Do they have to try and grapple him to kind of keep him in place? Do they have to use their spells and resources differently? Think, oh, actually, I'm going to cast a different spell that I wasn't actually going to plan on casting initially. When I ran him at one point, he disappeared behind one wall. I think we had it in the floor with a study, and there's a lot of rooms around there. He disappeared behind one wall. I used his legendary action movement to move to like other rooms, and then he came out on his turn, attacked an NPC, and then went back through a wall. And that was horrifying for the players because they were like, whoa, he literally just came out of a different wall than we were expecting. And yeah, so that's horrifying. It's a horror campaign. This, of course, raises the question is how do you defeat him? Because, you can play him in a way that makes him nearly invincible. And the fact, like I said earlier, there's a DM who apparently has made him invincible, has never lost. Well, hopefully your players will think of goading and taunting him. This is what I did when I was a player, and my fighter PC, I think it was getting frustrated and said, oh, I bet Tatiana thinks you're so brave hiding all the time. And I don't know if my DM did this on purpose, but the next round, the Strahd honed in on my player, on my PC, KO'd him, but it left a wide opening for my other fellow players and PCs to then attack Strahd. He was open. It could be through a DM mistake, like a genuine mistake. You miscalculate how much legendary action you have left, or you change the lair action to spice it up and you forget, oh, he can't actually phase through walls at the moment to get away from the sunlight. Something like that could then turn the tides and the PCs have an opportunity. If something like that happens a few rounds into the battle and, the players have already spent a lot of their resources, then great if it's kind of getting to a natural end. If it happens in the first or second round, that's a bit more concerning. Or maybe Strahd makes a mistake, as in you as the DM make a mistake, but it's not actually you making a mistake. You make Strahd make a mistake on purpose. And Strahd gets cocky. And he's like, haha, you adventurers are no big deal. I can defeat you. And maybe he stops the wall phasing lair action and approaches them more boldly. And then the players can attack him more freely and get the upper hand. At the end of the day, I was going to say he's human. He's not human. He's a vampire. But he's probably got human emotions. So if you taunt him, or maybe he gets cocky, he's going to drop his guard, I think. And the tactics won't be as strong at that moment. While I'm talking about this, another factor as well is make sure the final fight is in the castle, as the wall phasing only works there. I'd say avoid battles outside the castle once the players are a high level or have access to the sunlight items, or potentially other factors as well. Because Strahd is weak if you battle him outside of his castle and shine sunlight in his face, but he is not weak if he's in his castle and can phase through the walls. That's it for this one. I'm going to do a dedicated Strahd video soon, talking about resources for running him, roleplay. I've already done a video about his combat tactics, so feel free to check that out in the meantime. Next Curse of Strahd video, which I've been working on for a while, is running Curse of Strahd with the 2024 rules. It was meant to be this next video, but I'm still working on it. I want to make sure it's as comprehensive and useful as possible, which is why I put this video first. And then I'm going to try and cover all the things that have changed, such as certain spells, certain monsters, certain class abilities, things like that. And next Ravenloft video, because I also do Ravenloft videos. Strahd's not the only Dark Lord. Burivi's not the only Domain of Dread. After running Curse of Strahd for my players, we opened up to a wider Ravenloft campaign. And so I do videos talking about my experiences running Ravenloft and some of the NPCs and Dark Lords and Domains in there. And we've just finished Hazlan, which is run by an evil Red Wizard of Thay. And the domain suffers from wild magic shenanigans because there's been too much magical experimentation. The final battle happened in a 25-floor tower, which I had to populate with monsters, and I found a good map pack for it. So I'm going to do a video talking all about that. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please check out the playlists, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Mist Wanderers.